Hello again, everyone, to the Spiritual Brujas podcast. Here today with Rachel, a friend, a course we took together from Yes Supply, and I'm so excited to have you on here and get to chat with you and catch up with you. I think that you're an amazing human being. I love seeing all your social media videos. I just feel like you live in such flow. I think that it's amazing that you get to work and do your career and the things you love and just embracing every day. So thank you for being here. I'm really happy to have you and can't wait to dig in.
Yeah, me too, Gabby. Thanks for asking me. I feel like this is such like a long overdue and that we could talk for hours.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And so all of you guys know I went to North Carolina last summer. Yeah, last summer, and I actually got to meet Rachel in person. It was awesome. North Carolina was amazing, and I got to meet her in person, and we got to catch up and stuff. And I wanted to interview her because I think her story is very unique and powerful, and I think that she has a lot to give to the earth. And I think that it's important for everybody to hear your story and see where you were and where you are now and what you've learned along the journey, but also like what tools, what modalities, what experiences have you had that have kind of allowed you to have to who you are now. Yeah.
Where
So
do you
why
want to
don't
go?
you start off and just start sharing a little bit about you, where you come from, and kind of what you do.
Sure. So, hey y'all. Rachel. I am yoga teacher, mindset coach, entrepreneur. I feel like at this point, I yoga retreats and yoga teacher trainings and meditation, hypnosis, breathwork facilitator, like the list kind of goes on. I really just dived into this world of healing and of spirituality, mostly because I needed it to heal. And after I kind of felt like I was making great strides, I'm also a health coach, and that's my technical like 9 to 5. But I found all of these modalities as ways to kind of heal mind, body, and soul. But that's been a long road. That's been about 13 years of healing in all of these modalities. I always like to say, like your mess becomes your message, and the things that I have gone through have ultimately been what my soul has needed to overcome in order to kind of like find my path and my passions and be able to like sit here with you and like talk about, real life
Yeah.
beyond what we have been conditioned to be in society and culture, and really kind of move beyond those, in my opinion, bit of limitations and really empower yourself from the inside out. And I love this like world of personal development and getting to know yourself and what that means, and that all the answers are within you, and being able to just kind of guide people through experiences. I think that's really where I find maybe my brilliance is being able to kind of show up and give people like experiences where I'm not a healer, but they get to be in a space where they get to do their own healing. And that's, I feel like, a bit of my background. Anything you want to dive in from there, or someplace you want to start?
Sure, I will start off. So I noticed that, and we've talked briefly, you have struggled with bullying, and you actually won a case in where you live, and I believe, the school district. Correct me if if I'm wrong. And I think that is amazing. I think that is amazing, and I also applaud you for that because I think there's so much bullying that goes on, particularly in high school. And I think it's amazing that you were able to like win. And I mean, how amazing that like people got to your story, and like it making a difference, in your community. And I just want to know, like, how did it start? What led you to want to do the district?
Yeah, so it's a very long, involved story, and there are certain parts like with settling this case that like I can't talk about, like people's
Of
names,
course.
certain things. But I was a cheerleader. I was in competitive cheerleading for since a youngster, and I was with the same team. It was the same district of schools, so these girls and I were close friends since like 7 years old. And when I was in high school, with competitive cheerleading, it's not like you have two, like a lot when you're in high school, you can play two different sports, like what's in the
Hmm.
fall and then what's like in the spring. With cheerleading, it's all year round. So you didn't really have time to make other friend groups. Like your cheerleading squad was like, your people, like it was your crew. So all of my friends were the ones who were on the cheerleading squad. And I always kind of felt always heavier growing up. That was kind of a part of my story and what led me to be a health coach and on this road. But I was heavier growing up, so I feel like I always really wanted to be accepted. I think I always wanted to be loved, and I always wanted people to, yeah, to feel a part of a community, to feel a part of a group, and to know
Mhm.
that I had friends and I had people who were looking out. So one on the cheerleading squad, one of the girls was actually being made fun of, and they were calling her a lesbian. And at the time, this wasn't like as welcomed, I think, as it is now. And they were saying a lot of other things like about her physical appearance. And at first, I was kind of just like didn't say much. And then as things kind of started to escalate, I was the one who was kind of like, y'all need to stop. Like, this isn't funny anymore. And in the ways that I felt like at the time as a 15-year-old girl that I felt like I could handle, you know what I mean? So, still having my own issues of feeling like I didn't want to push too much, but I was pushing as to what I felt comfortable with. And eventually I felt like things were escalating at such a regard. They kept saying that this one girl wanted to be this other girl's girlfriend. And now it was like spreading throughout the whole cheerleading squad. It was spreading throughout the school. Like it was starting to become much bigger rumors than just kind of my more smaller group of friends on the cheerleading squad. So I actually went to my mom and was like, I don't know what to do. And once I did that and she went to these other girls' parents, things started to now be directed towards me because I was looked at as like the narc. Like I had like
Mhm.
spills. So we go away on a like cheerleading competition. We went down to Atlanta, so we traveled and shit was starting to hit the fan. And they were starting to like really, really gang up on this girl and pretend to be her like on the cell phone and call other people like outside of the cheerleading squad and in the cheerleading squad, like asking them out on dates and like just saying like really graphic, awful things. So I'm like sitting in bed and like the next day I go and I'm like, Mom, like I really don't know what to do. And something needs to be said. So my mom then goes to this girl who's being picked on's mom and is like, are you aware of any of this is that's going on? And this girl's mom ends up like crying to my mother saying, we didn't know what was going on. She feels so isolated. She feels so doesn't know why she's not a part of the group, but yada yada yada. So again, like all the like it's all starting to align as to the energy, that you can feel when, it's a little toxic, right? So to bring this kind of forward, I was the one that stuck up for this girl. The bullying gets put onto me, and it starts becoming a lot of like online stuff, like posting on Facebook, posting on there was a thing called Form Spring at the time, which was all anonymous. I started getting like phone calls from people, a lot of guys, like sexual rumors really started to run rampant
Mhm.
about me, which puts a new level on top of, this is already pretty bad. But once it kind of got to that level of more sexual allegations and a lot to roll into that, my parents then started kind of being like, you need to save like every article of like evidence that you have. My dad is in law enforcement, so he also kind of knew what steps to kind of take to start to protect ourselves. So like I would get like AIMs and like Facebook messages of like long things saying like, I need to shut the fuck up, like you need to shut your mouth. Like then I started getting like threats against, if you don't do this,
Mhm.
like eat you up. Then once this started to spiral where I was getting phone calls from like guys be like, will you give me a blowjob? And then the girls would be on the other end like laughing at me getting upset of like not knowing what to say. So once it was like a long weekend in New Jersey, you have snow days, so it was like a long weekend and this kind of shit was hitting on like a Friday, so it was a whole weekend until I went back to school. And then that Monday I started getting more like people coming into getting in my face in the lunchroom. And so I had an older girl who was a senior at the time come up to me in the lunchroom and say like, you better shut your fucking mouth, like you're spreading rumors, like who the fuck do you think you are? You're fat, you're ugly, you're a piece of shit, like no one has your back, nobody likes you. And like I'm just sitting there at the lunch table with, I'm pretty isolated. I have learning disabilities. I'm heavy. Like I get along with the cool crowd because I'm somewhat popular because I'm on the cheerleading team, but like I don't really have friends other than the girls who are on the team. And now the girls who I thought were close to me are all like turning on. So at this point, like I'm very alone. So I'm sitting at like this lunch table that no one's gonna say anything to this girl. So I just like am like just like smile and nod, like don't know what to say, totally shut down, totally numbed out. I end up going to the bathroom and like hysterically crying and calling my mom and being like, please come pick me up from school. And at the time, one of the captains of the cheerleading squad was actually in the bathroom and she goes, you need to bring this to the school. Like this needs to stop. So I end up going to my guidance counselor, and this is where I can sum this up quickly. My guidance counselor ends up hearing this whole story. We come in with this like stack of like, here are all the pictures. Like the girls would like paint my face orange and yellow out my teeth and then post that on Facebook so they could all comment mean comments about it and then take it off Facebook so that no one would see. But like I had saved all of this as this was happening. So we had like a file like pretty thick, like to bring to my guidance counselor and be like, to back up what we were saying. I had like phone call logs and like, you know, everything that we could to back up what we were saying. So the school ends up getting involved. They end up saying like, oh, we're going to run an investigation. They call the girls in, they call me in, they have me write out like everything that's going on. I'm like starting to skip school and like not go into school because I don't want to like feel like I'm being judged and isolated. Like they would call me like a slut and a whore, like down the hallway, call me fat, like say how ugly I was, like all often, you know. So at some point when the school gets involved and the girls start to get called in, a lot of like the abuse, I would say, got cut down. It was much less like, you know, rumors, hush hush, much like less in my face. But the school gets involved. They said they're going to do an investigation. They call the girls in. Nothing happens. So now this is like the end of like my sophomore year of high school, and I'm on varsity cheerleading. So I made varsity as a freshman, which is not really happens a lot. So the coach does nothing. The coach knows she doesn't do anything about it. Doesn't go to the school. The girls don't get a detention. Nothing happens. So now I don't go out for cheerleading the next year, obviously. And now like my mom is like, what the fuck? Like, why did the school not do anything? Now, one of the girls who's involved, which makes this another level of sketch, her father sits on the board. So my mom now starts calling the superintendent of schools, the superintendent of the county, the superintendent, like anybody she can call, she starts calling because she's like, there's bullying, harassment, especially for now there's like a gay incentive of this because I was sticking up for somebody. So like she starts calling everybody known to man, the principal, you know, and no one does anything. So now it's like I have to sit down with the superintendent. I have to sit down with all of these people, tell them my story, tell them about these sexual allegations that are now being brought up. And I'm 16 and I have nobody. And that's really heavy and that's hard. And how I dealt with a lot of that was to numb out because it was a lot very painful. And I was abandoned essentially by adults who acted just as badly as kids as a way to protect themselves, because now this is starting to get higher up. So now my principal is starting to try to cover her tracks as to why she didn't do anything, because now the superintendent is calling in now other investigators who have nothing to do with the district and are independent. So these independent investigators come in, they do an investigation, they ask for all of our evidence. They talk to my superintendent, they talk to my counselor, they talk to everybody. And then they talk to me and my family. And again, my mom's a pit bull. Like she is like, doesn't fuck around. My dad's like 6'2", a big dude, a police officer. Like we're a tough family. Like if it wasn't for my family, and to answer your question, I know this is a long-ended response, but to answer your question is what made us start to go to the legality route is I looked at my mom and I said, I understand why kids kill themselves. Like I understand why people commit suicide, because if it wasn't for my family, if I didn't have them as someone to ground me and to love me and to stick up for me, like I don't know what I would have done. Like I wasn't having suicidal thoughts. I wasn't like thinking like I'm gonna kill myself, but I was thinking of like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like I don't want to be in this situation. And I understand why people would think that their only option out when you can't see forward, because now there's like trauma involved. I could understand like them thinking that this is the only solution to end a lot of their pain. So the investigators do this investigation and they end up having a report, and the school district now won't give me and my family the report to allow us to see what it says. I say that to my mom. We now realize now I'm in my junior year, my end of my junior year. Nothing's happened. These girls are still on the cheerleading squad. One of them's a captain. And I feel like my family feels very like our voices are not being heard. Nothing has happened to prove Rachel's story in a sense of like any justice for the fact of like what has transpired. So I say that to my mom. My mom and dad are like, okay, well, let's go the legality route. Like, let's at least see what a lawyer would say about the case. So we go to one lawyer, and I think a lot too at the time, Gabby, is finances were involved. it's a certain amount to sue
Right.
and have that financial burden of now having to hire a lawyer and how expensive that is. And we're taking on a school district. You know what I mean? Like this isn't
Right.
like, and that
Yeah.
fight could end up going to court. And I had to be okay with the fact that I might have to go to court and I would have to sit in front of a whole, juror and like
Hmm.
tell this story about what happened. And again, we find out later on that this goes to a whole nother level, that they started photoshopping pictures of me naked. They started photoshopping pictures of like things going in certain holes in certain areas. And we don't find this out until we go more into litigation. But like there was a whole level of, I don't even know what the right word is, like repugnant, like it's like so I wouldn't wish this on anybody. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Very, so much
you know
malice.
exactly, like so much ugliness that I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Um, so we get to the point where the lawyer is like, yes, you have a case. She's like, it's X amount of money. She's also starting not doing really anything. And we're like, well, we want this report to at least hear what it has to say. I end up, my mom again is now calling the news, calling, anything to bring light and heat to the fact that they have literally done nothing for me and have gotten this report. And so now my mom has made friends with someone who's on the board who has been kind of like telling her certain things of what's going on, and kind of the politics. Now that comes along with the fact that no one's handling this correctly. And now they're all as adults are trying to cover their ass because they know they've dropped the ball. So my mom ends up talking to one of the best bullying attorneys in the state. He calls me in. I'm probably 17 at the time and about to go to college. And he calls me in and he sits me down and he asks me a bunch of questions. And he ends up taking my case, not having to have a retainer, meaning that my parents didn't have to pay any
Wow.
pocket
Wow.
for him to take my case. My case ends up being the first case in New Jersey to be based on emotional damage and not physical damage. So bullying a lot at the time was a lot about physical harassment, about
Yeah.
being physically injured. And I didn't have physical injury, I had emotional injury. And at the time that was a big deal. Because HIB is harassment, intimidation, and bullying.
Hmm.
It's kind of the acronym for the law in the state that just was getting enforced at the time. And so my school district hadn't followed any of those procedures, any of that law that was in place. So I end up getting this lawyer. He ends up fighting for me, but this is a 3-year battle. This is mediation,
Yeah.
this is depositions of me having to sit in a room with, 5 men and them sit me down for 6 hours and talk to me about everything having to do with the case. And that's a lot. And that's a lot.
Yes.
So I end up like going to school in North Carolina, pretty much kind of like running away from my problems and like hoping that I can like just go have fun, and like because I'm a very mostly happy-go-lucky, like good energy, good spirit, just good person. So I kind of like run away to college and try to forget about everything that just kind of transpired. But it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there are things coming up. I'm starting to have spiritual awakenings of the fact of like, I just went through this whole experience. Nobody gives a shit. I'm alone. And I feel like, again, like your parents can give you a certain amount of love and care, but I also feel like you need peers. And like now I feel like I've been alone without a peer group or without a friend group. But now I have a certain amount of trauma with like, I don't really trust people. Like I don't really trust that you're going to be there for me. I don't really trust that what you're saying to me is the truth. Like it's it doesn't come up all at once, but this is starting to come out, and I'm starting to struggle in
Good.
relationships. I'm starting to struggle dealing with a certain amount of trauma that has happened. And it's really hard for me to accept. I was diagnosed with PTSD when I was in high school, but at the time, I kind of thought that she was just trying to help my case. I didn't really think that it was real. And no one really sat me down and was like, this is what this means, or this is how this is going to come out. I just had gone to therapy a few times because they thought I needed to talk to someone and I needed to like get it done for my case and like have an evaluation. But when like she said like, yeah, you have anxiety and PTSD, and I just was like, no, I don't. Like, what do you mean? Like, what does that even mean? I'm like 17, 18. I don't know. Like, no one around me has PTSD. I'm not sure what that means. So I just kind of keep going about my life. But as things start to kind of spiral, as I get into like my mid 20s, and I'm just like what am I doing with life? What is life? I am emotional. I, don't know almost how to regulate. I'm very numb and like I'm very frozen. My nervous system is very frozen. But these words and these terms I know now. At the time, I was just trying to get by. And so that just led me down this whole healing journey. And how we're here is that I had to deal with a lot of things as a young person, that made me very wise, that made me very, very strong in a way, but
You
also
had to
left a
grow
lot
up
of,
very fast, right?
yeah, very, I had to grow up very fast. But there was a lot of residual effects, you know what I mean, that I still deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
And that's a hard thing to accept about yourself, and to love those things about yourself, when you feel like it was kind of done to you know what I mean? Where
Right.
that's a lot of healing and forgiveness and awareness.
Mhm.
So that's been a journey, and that's what led me to this world of yoga and health and learning how to take care of myself, learning what, mental health and emotional health even is. Not having any of those tools, not having any of that structure, growing up, and then realizing that I desperately needed to identify almost what was kind of going on inside of me. Because I have found the more I can identify and I can name, PTSD, anxiety, hypervigilance, name these things, I feel less crazy. I feel like there's less something wrong with me. And it's not that something was wrong with me, it's something had happened to me. And every stage now, I have to like look back at my 16-year-old self and like forgive myself and almost love myself in a different stage in life, looking back and being like, wow, I was 16 years old and I was dealing with that. And
Yeah.
there's a new round of grief that kind of comes every few years of looking back at my younger self and being like, wow, you were going through a lot and it's understandable that you were behaving this way and you were trying to cope in these ways. And that's very healing and cathartic, but it's also very heavy and it's very a lot of energy to be that aware of yourself, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And I
So
really commend you, Rachel, because I think that you're right. I think with every rise that we have as individuals, there is a level of grief of because we are rebirthing a new one of ourselves. There's some grieving that has to be done for the person that we've left behind, and
yeah.
learning to alchemize that grief, and learning to become friends with that grief and honor it, is something I'm learning to do as well. I think that we're, especially as women, I feel like we're taught to just push through,
Yeah.
just push through, keep going. That's what we're taught, right? Just keep going, keep
Yeah.
going. And so what happens is we just push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down. But it does get to a level where there's just so much you can take, And I
Yeah.
think at 16 years old, you are going already through so many changes in
Yeah.
life. You have hormonal changes, you're in high school, you are trying to figure shit out. You're trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do in life, what college you're going to go to, all these things that I think high school in itself is very challenging, as
Yeah.
a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And I see my kids, it's hard. It's really hard navigating those years to on top have to navigate with all the malice, all the vulgarness that you went through, all for sticking up for someone, is just, I think that, you described it very eloquently. And I really, really have a new admiring for you, because that is a lot. That is a lot. And it's very true what you said. I know you've said this in your post that you just never know what people have gone through, I see your post and I see this happy-go-lucky person, I see you doing cartwheels on the beach and just laughing and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and would have never thought that that person had been through something so rough, you know, to the point where you felt like, oh, I understand why kids take their life,
Yeah.
that's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep,
Yes.
and it's taken many years to get to where you are,
Yeah.
many, many years. Like you said, I think you said you were about to be 30,
Yeah.
so that's 14, 15 years, it's a
Yeah.
long time. And it's crazy to think how fast things can happen to you and how long it takes for us to heal from all those demons, So
There's
I
this
am just in awe of your courage and your strength, and I think there's a lot of people that will victimize themselves for a long time, and sit with that and stay in that role, and I've always been told there's two choices, right? You can sit where you're at, or you can fight to move forward, and use it as a lesson rather than sit with it and use it as something that you're going to victimize yourself your entire life, and you're one of the people that fight, and not only did you fight for yourself, but you fought to make a difference in your community, for other cheerleaders, because let me tell you, my daughter is also a cheerleader, and the level of bullying that goes on in
yeah,
cheerleading is just insane. I mean, luckily,
yeah,
she hasn't experienced it personally, but her friends have. And
okay,
they also threatened to sue the school district because
yeah,
of stuff that was going on. And I don't know that I want her to be a cheerleader anymore. It's just horrible. It's horrible. It is. It is very scary, and you're right. The individual who was going through the bullying and her cheer team felt the same way. She was just kind of done, and it's sad. It's sad that this world, instead of bringing us together, there's so much animosity and hatred that really just separates everyone. When we can just be a team and we can be friends and we can be kind to each other, we
yeah.
choose to use our projections, right, about ourselves to kind of enforce it to others, and therefore causes retaliation, but yeah, I really applaud you, Rachel. And I know that you had been bullied, but I didn't know the level that it was, and it sounds like it was a very hard time in your life, and you're so lucky to have the parents that you have, that see you and fight for you,
Yeah.
because I think not everybody has parents like that, so
Yeah, for sure. There is a certain like blessings. Like again, like you take your lessons and you make like you find blessings in them. And I feel like there's no other like way I think to heal is than to find the blessings, that come of it. And again, like I say, like I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. But without it, I don't think I would be the person that I am today. Like there's a certain amount of it. I'm thankful, in certain regards. I've had to forgive a lot of people who
yeah.
don't, I've never asked for my forgiveness. And that's a process. And my family fought for me. And I think there's a lot of kids whose family one wouldn't fight for them, like wouldn't want to take on the burden. Like that was my mom spent days in and days out calling people
Oh,
and like doing everything that she could like to fight for me and to make it right. And I think there are a lot of people who wouldn't have that support.
yeah.
And there's support on all levels, right? Like we need a certain amount of basic needs of like connection and community and love.
Yeah.
And what is trauma? Trauma is essentially anything that isn't love. So there was only so much that my family could fill in for me.
Mhm.
And I think what I love about yoga so much is that it was a way for me to heal and to there is a certain amount of community means so much to me. And as someone who's extremely extroverted and like you said, like I have such a big heart and I really try to let that shine through. There is a certain amount of hypervigilance that comes into play of like I'm only getting to a point where I really feel like the friendships in my life I can trust. I'm really only getting to a place in my life where I feel like my relationship is something that I can trust.
Wow.
There is a lot of residual effects from this, and I had a family. You know what I mean? Like I think are so easy to judge others for how maybe they come across, but it has, I think my biggest thing is it's given me so much compassion and so much empathy and so much understanding for others. Doesn't mean that sometimes I don't get triggered by others. I do. And that's my own shining a light on my own shadows that still need love. But there are still a lot of shadows and there's still a lot of darkness. And I think my biggest hope is to have people know that like even though you have those days, it doesn't mean that you also won't have glorious days, and it doesn't mean you won't have so much aliveness in life, and like there is something to look forward to. And I think
Yeah.
at the time, like your daughter when you're in high school, like you don't see a year ahead, like you don't see 4 years ahead.
Oh,
Your scope of is present moment. So when you're in that present moment as a kid and you have no you or no way out, like you can't shift your reality. Like we talk about this all the time. You gotta be like create your own reality and you can manifest. And like, like you don't have that vernacular. Like you don't have
everything kind of closes in.
Exactly, and you're with these people every single fucking day. There's no, like, I can drive, I can leave, I could, you know what I mean? There's no job, you know, there's only so much that you can control as a kid, and, to not have any adults then supporting you, like, oof, that's rough. And
Mm.
conditioning, you know, again, at least for me, a certain amount of conditioning, that, like, people aren't really gonna be there for you, or
Yeah.
the fear of that. Yeah, still something I deal with.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so vulnerable with us today. I think that not too many people do this, you know, and I know that it can't be easy to talk about these things again. And I'm sure there's lots of feelings that come up that triggers you. So I just really want to thank you for allowing to, you know, chat about it. And really, the reason I wanted to bring is to bring awareness to this, you know, because like I said, I have a daughter, and we've navigated through something similar, not her personally but her friends, and I was actually baffled. I could not believe how people adult allow these type of things to happen right under their noses, you know. I mean, in my daughter's case, the coach was actually the one being the bully, you know. She was
Yeah.
actually the one. I mean, like I said, it wasn't to her directly, but there was a couple times that I was upset. She said that they were practicing her senior cheer. She's a senior, so they were practicing. She gave them the option to do their own senior cheer, you know, and create their own so that they could perform it on senior night. And she said they did it, and one of the captains was in charge of everything, and they did the dance for her to show it to her, and she got really upset, and she told them that they all looked like a bunch of sluts,
Oh my
you
god.
know. And I was like, wait, what? Like,
Oh
that's
my
not
god.
okay, you
Yeah.
know. And she's like, well, that's just how she is. Like, and it's interesting how the girls try to like make it not be a big, like my daughter always says, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's
Right.
like whatever. It's like whatever. But it
Right.
is a big deal. It is a
Yeah.
big deal, you know. Like, people could not go around calling you that, you know.
Right. Right, because
Especially
it's
somebody who's,
normalized.
yeah, especially somebody who's in a place of power, in a
Oh,
place of that's supposed to be guiding you and supporting you. Like,
right.
who does she think she is, you know?
Yeah.
And I brought it up to the vice principal, you know, and I told him, and the other girl's family actually wanted to sue the school district, so it had already been brought up, and they ended up interviewing all the girls, and they have somebody kind of supervising the coach who's there, either the vice principal or the principal when she's teaching. But I'm like, why not just get rid of the coach?
Yeah.
You know, why is there a need of somebody else to be there, you know? And it's just really disappointing to see that the school district you think has your child's back doesn't always have their back. They're always there. They're there to do a job. They're
Yeah.
not there for the passion. They're not there to care for the kid, you know? And
That's a tough pill to swallow.
yeah, it's hard, you know? Like, how are we supposed to trust that they're safe? How are we supposed to trust
Yeah.
that nothing bad's gonna happen to my child when I
There is
bring this up, and there's not too much being done about it? So,
yeah.
again, thank you so much for everything. I think that you will shed a lot of light on this, and a lot of people will probably maybe find things familiar. And, you know, like I said, bring awareness to it. That's the most important part of all of this. I think that there's so much awareness that can be brought to cheerleading in high school and all of it. But I just have a couple questions to ask you.
Sure.
I wanted to know, like, so after all of that, after getting into starting your healing journey, what are some of the tools and, you know, what are the techniques, modalities, somatics, whatever it is that you use to help regulate your nervous system because you said you have PTSD, so that has to be rough. That
Yeah.
I'm sure that can creep up unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And what is it that you do to help regulate your nervous system in moments where you kind of feel panic?
Yeah. It's tough. You know, it's tough. You know, yoga movement is a fantastic modality, you know, and it doesn't always have to be like I'm going to a full yoga class, but like even like just like shaking off your energy, shaking your body, like shaking is actually really good for the nervous system and helps relax the nervous system. So just like stepping aside, like taking 5 minutes, like leaving your desk or whatever situation you may be in, and allowing your like to kind of feel the emotion in your body and then kind of like shake it off. Somatic work, somatic movement, definitely helpful. And yoga gave me a lot of
Ooh.
freedom and a lot of permission, I think, to feel into my body when I was very disassociated because all I felt was kind of the pain. So I was very like in my head and kind of disassociated to my body. So yoga really gave me a lot of permission to be in my body and to start feeling safe in my body. And also I would just like to say that like flow, or certain amount of flow, like, you know, you mentioned like seeing me dancing. There's a certain amount of like being in flow, being in yoga, giving experience, being in meditation, listening to music, that brings a certain amount of higher consciousness that really allowed me to get out of my head, out of my thinking thoughts, where I just get to be. And that freedom of just getting to be and getting to express myself allowed me to almost like give myself my power back, and that like my voice does matter, and allow me to lead and allow me to show up, and give myself that freedom and that grace. So a lot of movement based things was a huge part of my journey. And then like really getting into mindset and beliefs and what I believed about myself, and the residual effect of having people tell you things about yourself for so long, especially as a child, like that got wired in. And as I started to like go down the healing journey, and I had to like let go of the stories about myself that were actually not true. And that is a reoccurring theme. I think that will happen probably for the rest of my life. But working on mindset and beliefs, and that the power of your mind, I can't emphasize enough of how important that, and things like EFT, emotional freedom technique, where you're acknowledging your emotions and then releasing them. Like
Mm.
going to talk therapy and having an independent party to talk to. Like, I think the whole world needs therapy, in my opinion. I really do. It's something my mom used to say, and I
Yeah.
come now to believe it too. The whole world needs therapy. It is an
Yeah.
independent party to look at you and say there's nothing wrong with you, and it's so understandable, these emotions you're feeling, the things you're going through based on what has happened to you in the past. I think that is invaluable for people. I don't think therapy fixes everything. I think you need to do mindset work. I think you need to do energetic work. I think you need to do other healing modalities. I don't think there's one tool that fixes it all. I think that is a marketing cop out. You know what I mean? And you need a toolbox. You need a toolbox of things. It has been my experience to deal with a certain amount of pain and trauma. And just like, again, we all have certain thoughts, and we've all had childhood. So I think trauma can be like a triggering word. But if you've been a child, if you've had a childhood, like coming into the world is trauma. You know, that's trauma for the mom and
Right.
for the child.
Yeah.
Like there's so much. So I think these modalities again is what you're kind of called to at the time. But for me, it was, you know, EFT, hypnosis, yoga, meditation, and breath work is currently like my biggest one. I think breath work get down to it and works into your subconscious mind, works into your how you think and how you feel, and your physiology, which is in control of it all. And as you start to change your physiology, is as you start to be able to regulate your emotions and regulate your nervous system. So to me, that has been the biggest change. I've seen so much change in that I can calm myself when I am triggered, and sometimes I can't. I just had a moment, honestly, when I was in Costa Rica, where I got super triggered, and that was hard. That was a hard thing for me to see. But then I now, a few days later, again have to have that grace and that self-love. Like, that was a trigger based on something so much deep rooted, and that deep rootedness comes from the little girl inside of me who needs love and attention and care. And that's going to probably be something that I have to go back to again and again and again and again. So those would be like some of my biggest tools, and some of the things that I work now with clients with and for, because those are the ones that I've seen the most progress in, I guess I would say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know that we talked a little bit about the breath work earlier on, and I think that that's amazing that you're going to be certified in it, because I do agree with you in the sense that a lot of will take time and
Yeah,
consistency and repetition, right?
yeah,
And I feel
practice.
like breath work is one of those things that you can instantaneously feel a difference, in right after you do it. You might not always feel a huge difference, but you do
Right.
feel a difference. It
Yeah.
definitely takes the edge off. And we talked about it a little while ago. For me, I did a detox breath work, and the one thing that I remember feeling right after was like the most clarity I've ever felt in my life. Like I knew what I wanted, I knew what I had to do, I knew where I was going, and it was just something that you cannot put into words. and it didn't last forever,
Right.
but the moment I
Tool.
was, wow, like, whoa, like, this is not to say that I had to go through so much, what do you say, what do you call it when you're going through the phases of the breath work? So many different phases, I guess. I cried, I
Yeah.
laughed, I screamed, I was angry, I was happy, I was overjoyed, and but at the end result, I got something out of it, and that was amazing. That was an amazing feeling, to feel like I know what I want. It was like woohoo, like I know what I
Yeah.
want, I know what I want to do, I know what
Same.
I'm here for, I know what my purpose is, and just feeling that sense of peace in the moment. So I
Yeah.
think that it's amazing that you're doing that. I think you're doing an amazing job, and I would have never known everything you've been through. Like I said, you look just so, like you said, you shine through, and your smile, your dancing. I mean, every time I watch a video with you and there's music and you're just like on the beach and you're like going in circles dancing, I immediately get a smile on my face. I'm like, oh, Rachel, my gosh, you always put a smile on my face. I think it's amazing, and that's the kind of effect you want to have on people. You want to remember them because they put a smile on your face.
That's right.
So I think that what you're doing is absolutely wonderful, and I just know that big things are coming your way, and I know you're manifesting everything that's coming. I think that I don't think we shared that you also do retreats, right? You do yoga
Yeah.
retreat. Just
Yeah.
went to and
Did.
Italy, and like you said, you just went to Costa Rica. I think that when I see you and I see all the traveling you do, I'm like, wow, I want to be like that. I want to be in, like, you're just in flow, like you said, and I'm currently in a moment where I'm constantly looking at the clock because of my job. I'm like, okay, I have this much time to do this much time to get here, to get there.
Yeah.
And if I could do change something right now, that would be it. It would be that I do not have to look at the clock, that I'm doing a job that I do not have to worry about what time it is, and that's how I see you. I see you just walking through your day, getting to where you need to go, but not looking at, oh my gosh, what time it is? Oh my gosh, I need to be here. Oh my gosh, I need to be there. Just living in flow. And that is my ultimate goal in life, is to live in flow. Because time is like, what is time? Is it even real? Somebody invented it. Somebody invented time, it's not even
Yeah.
real, yet
Drugs.
it doesn't cost anything, yet it's priceless,
Yeah.
so just keep doing what you're doing. I would like everybody for you to share with everybody where they can find your services, where they can find you if they want to follow you,
Love that.
and if you're ever in North Carolina, where they can go to have yoga, to have a yoga class with you, all of the things.
Yes. Yeah. So mostly like my Instagram is currently like my business card. So you can find me at High Vibe Yogi on Instagram and High Vibe Yogi actually on TikTok now. I share a lot more of like short videos, like more talking videos on TikTok.
Mm.
And if you like for retreats and such, I post all of that like on my Instagram as well. There's a link in my bio for classes. And if you're interested in a breathwork experience, a meditation experience, a hypnosis experience, or a combination of all of those things, shoot me a DM, say like yoga or something, and I can go over more of that with you, of more of like those nitty gritty details. But that's currently what's on the docket. A lot more trying to get into like new moon, full moon rituals and experiences online.
Wow,
Um,
love that.
that's that's a bit of where you can find me.
And to close off this interview, I would like you to tell us, in 5 years, where do you see yourself?
Ooh, ooh, goosebumps. Yeah, as you hopefully know from now that like as Gabby is so nice to be like to say like I'm very in flow. I'm a very big traveler. I love traveling, and a lot of like the yoga retreats is being able to combine like the spiritual aspects of travel, of getting out of your day to day, of taking a bird's eye view of your life in a beautiful place, like having deep connections like with nature, with yourself, with community. So what I see in 5 years is like having, retreats, maybe a retreat center, a podcast, doing life kind of on my terms, being able to live abroad and travel and have a business and being able to share and like connect with people and grow community, and be able to serve people and give these types of modalities, that I really do think will change the world, because in my opinion, your external world is usually a very direct mirror of our internal world. And if we look at collectively, I feel like a lot of these tools could help so many people and understand themselves so much. So I just love to share, and I love to be able to connect and do it kind of, I guess, in my way, with a lot of dancing and a lot of singing and a lot of yoga and a lot of meditation. So I'm very into energy and to vibes. So if you are vibing with any of this, I would love to connect. And I want to thank you, Gabby, for having me on, for like giving me a bit of like reassurance in all of this, and wanting to hear the story. It's
Yeah.
it's a lot, and I think it's a lot for people at times. And I appreciate you seeing me and giving this time in this space. And so thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I have no doubt you will be traveling the world. I mean, that is a given. I see you traveling everywhere, and sharing it with everyone,
Yeah.
all the beautiful places in the world that you travel. And I just want you to know that I instantly had connected with you because of your aura, because of your energy. It reminds me so much of Sahara Rose and
Love
how
that.
just always dancing and moving and like singing and like
Gosh,
traveling and like
yes, some feminine energy,
that's the
man.
vibe. Yeah, that's the vibe. And I
Yeah.
I noticed that I'm attracted to people like that.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I will allow myself to just be like that, and just be a whole vibe like you guys are
Retreat's a
because
place to start,
I
baby. It's where it
life
started for me.
yeah, I think life is just much more pleasant,
Yeah.
that way, just instead of walking, just dancing to wherever you're going, to the beat of your own drum.
Put the headphones on, baby, and like
Yeah.
you become your own vibe, you become your own world. Like when you, again, like to me, it's all about higher consciousness and how to get there. Breath work, meditation, hypnosis, my puppers, and music. And so like I always kind of have like a soundtrack to my life on, I feel like, and it puts me in a
Yeah.
certain amount of flow. And like I feel so connect. I feel like I'm just me, like I'm just like there's no other time where I feel more like I'm not thinking about anything and I'm just in like my own loving energy. And I think I've just learned that I like to share that because I want other people to step into their own loving energy. It's not just
Yeah.
mine to hold, it's you empowering yourself to let yourself shine. And I think if I can leave us with anything is, me now sharing on social media and being able to step into this like version is from all the work I've done. I've been, deathly afraid of like the judgment, of the criticism, of of no one liking me, of no one, being able to connect to me. And a lot of that is I have to have grace for myself and what I've been through. But the more you work through these things, you come out on the other side and realize, no, there's so many people who could connect with you. And just because
Yeah.
some people don't, like, you're not going to be for everybody. But for the people who you are for, like, you'll find your people, like you'll find your tribe. And
Yeah.
all about empowerment. And for us women, it's like I feel like we have to stick together and like and learn from each other and have so much love and
And
compassion.
support each other and
Yeah,
support each other, be happy for each other
right.
because if you're happy for your tribe, like that's what the universe gives you, remember? Like you just whatever you pour out to the universe, that's what you're going to get back.
Yeah.
So, and I really believe that. I really do believe that. So thank you. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being yourself, for showing up as yourself, I really, really do appreciate it. And I'm gonna have you back on in 5 years and we're gonna talk about where you're at then.
I would love that. I'm here anytime. I love supporting you and this, what you're doing, the ventures you're going down. Like, how cool is that? And that our worlds combined or, found each other and we're here like having deep conversations that make a difference. To me, like this is what life's about the connection, about the realness, about the authenticity
Yeah.
and something deeper than like what we do on our day-to-day basis and day-to-day life. And that really enriches me and my soul. And I hope that whoever's listening is enriched.
And
And
I
I,
think that there's something about that, right? Something to be said about that, about being able to talk to somebody about something and have them get you, just have them just understand what you're talking about and not be like, wait, what? huh? Like,
Like
you know,
Hulu, like weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think I love that. I love having the conversations like this and just feeling like somebody can understand what I'm talking about, where I'm coming from, you know. Somebody
Yeah.
has been where I've been, where I am now, you know, and seeing you and other women in our cohort be where you guys are at now and know that you guys were once where I am, really helps me keep going, you know, and just have faith that everything's going to be fine and everything's going to turn out. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you, Rachel. Thank you for being a guest.
Thank
I hope
you.
you have an amazing holidays, you
You
know,
too.
and
Merry
enjoy yourself,
Christmas.
enjoy your family. Merry Christmas, and I will catch you in the new year.
Sounds beautiful. Thanks for having me, guys.
Sure, no worries. Have a great day.